All right, hello. If you're just joining us, welcome to, what is this one called? Well, it's Crowfall live stream, but do we have a name for it?
Temple Tour.
Temple Tour. All right, welcome to the Temple Tour.
I'll be your guide.
I am J. Todd Coleman, Creative Director of Crowfall, and this is
Jon O'Neal, Environment
Lead for Crowfall.
And off camera, I'm Pan. I'm here to ask your questions later in the stream. So get those questions ready.
It is. And Cece's here somewhere too, aren't you, Cece?
Hello, I'm here.
All right. So, Mr. O'Neal, the other thing that is coming in 590, and the reason that you are here, what you got?
I got nothing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You just
Okay, well, thanks for coming out.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for
great live stream. Probably one of the best. So get in, say what you got to say, and get out.
We have the environment team, because this has been a kind of a team thing. We have a brand new temple to show off for everybody.
That's really cool.
Yeah, well, we hope so.
So are you telling me that the temple that's in the game right now that has no color, it's all completely white, that's not final?
No, and
I thought it was final because the texture says temp on it, and temp for temple, right?
Well, we wanted it to be final, but then we realized that we probably shouldn't.
We should paint it.
We should probably paint it. So
fair point.
Yeah.
All right.
But before we get started, I thought it'd be kind of cool to show everybody. We've shown some images, we've shown some concepts, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to show from the very beginning where all this started.
Okay.
Stoneborn from the very beginning, the concept of it, of what you wanted it for, and then we just kind of go through some concepts. We'll quickly show off the gray box, what's in there now, and then we'll switch right over to the.
I think that's cool. So let's talk just for a second, just because some people who are jumping in right now may not be super familiar with Crowfall. I find that staggering. I can't imagine anybody is like that, but there are a few. They may not know what we mean when we say Stoneborn. So I'll give just a little bit of lore, and then that'll influence all of the stuff you're about to show. So the Stoneborn are effectively our dwarven race. So we didn't call them dwarves. They're heavier, they're bigger, they're stockier. They're made of stone, and their beards are these massive root structures that come out of their face and come out of the back of their head.
Almost look like tentacles, but they're not.
So they're almost more golems, right, than they are, officially, like, technically dwarves. So the idea is that these are not a standard race, where they're basically, they were created by the gods, specifically created by Cain and Gaia. Cain being the smith of the hammer of the heavens, and Gaia being the earth mother. Created them to be effectively the maintenance men of the universe. Yeah. So their job was
I love that idea, by the way.
Yeah, so the tunnels that go underneath the ground, they basically kind of run around in the tunnels, and they keep the lava moving, they keep the fires of the earth burning. And because he is connected to stone, because he's the god of the moon as well, and she is connected to earth, which is life and trees, they are literally living rock. Like they have stone as their bodies, and if you were to cut into one, their nervous system, instead of having like blood and bone, you would just find roots, and so the roots kind of come spilling out all over the place. So that's the background information, is that the Stoneborn were created. They were literally born of the stone. And the other idea that we had is that they don't reproduce. They're not like a race like that. There were a number of them created at the beginning of time, and that's it. That's all there are. It's when one of them effectively dies, if it gets eaten by the hunger or whatever, it is gone from the universe, and there's just one less Stoneborn. So it's a really cool kind of take on the traditional dwarves. And so when we had that initial idea, we thought it would be cool if their entire like architecture mirrored that, where you've got the stone, and the stone would have these plants kind of growing up through it, so the stone itself was alive, and then we had this lattice work stuff that came out of it. So anyway, that's probably enough background to go with, John, so why don't you take it?
And we'll just walk you through. These are some of the earliest concepts that Nick had done, and Dave, I think, had some in there as well. But these are just, you can kind of get an idea of what Todd was talking about, how we wanted it to be very kind of interlaced with the environment. And not saying that this is the final look to any of this. This is all the earlier stuff.
Yeah, this was exploration for us, effectively, right? Trying to figure out what it looked like. There was also a question of scale, right? That you felt was really important from the beginning.
Exactly. We wanted to throw things in there that were just massive, just things that were huge, that you would roll around a mountain maybe, and you would see this large structure or statue, and so that's kind of where that was all born from. And I'll just show you a few more, and then we can get into the... we really like this one, too. We need to go back.
Yeah, I like that, too. I like that one because it has a little bit of contrast, right, with the checkerboard floor being darker. I think that's pretty neat.
And we also wanted versions of it to feel like it had been there for thousands and thousands of years.
Sure,
So it was weathered and kind of partially destroyed and whatnot. So, yeah, I think we all get kind of an idea what we're looking here. So now what I'll do is I'll jump over to the process. So from that process and discussions that we had, we started blocking out ideas and, shapes, and then we kind of took it to the next step, which was,
So yeah, so I'll while you're grabbing it, I'll mention. So you notice kind of there's my idea on the way they actually constructed these things is they started with the metal lattice work. Like they would start by forging that metal structure.
Yes.
And then they would basically almost like stuccoing, like they would grow or mold or shape the stone around that structure, and then they would plant the leaves and the roots, and the things would grow up inside, and that would basically make to where just like they are kind of a living structure, these temples and things were also alive, which is a really cool idea considering that they are the offspring of Cain and Gaia, the Earth Mother.
So these next set of concepts are the next phase of how this process works. So now we're starting to get kind of more of a temple look.
Yeah. So that was the question of, okay, we've seen the pieces. What would an actual structure look like?
And then we liked certain pieces from each concept. So you'll start to see some of these pieces intermix yet again, like these kind of big curved pieces, the trim detail, that kind of stuff. And then now what we'll do is we'll go back, and this is kind of some of the final concepts of what the temple ended up being. And you can see how we took things from one concept, some things that we liked, some trim details, like I was saying, and we just started creating the temple. And then once I get this point right here, this is a good example. This is where something I would take and gray box it out.
Right, for sure.
And that's kind of like what's in the game right now. So this is a great kind of example. This shows us how far we wanted to push the market, which I'll show you the final version of that.
Which is interesting, right? Because that's part of the backstory on these is that this was a dwarven temple, but now it's kind of been repurposed.
Yeah.
So like this, the idea of these vendors being here, this is not original structure now. These are people have come after the fact and turned this now into a destination that you can go and buy and sell things. So it's kind of interesting because you've got a mix going of new elements mixed in with some of the old elements.
Yeah.
You still have the underground area that is the bank, but you've also got this above the surface area where they've kind of shoved things into corners and stuff like that, which is kind of cool.
They just came in and took over, and what was there, if that stone was laying over there, they just left it there and put something over it.
Right.
So
just to be clear, these are things that will be in the 5.9 patch, right? The 5.9 update.
Yes. So this
will
and actually,
start to-
interestingly enough, there's not just one temple coming.
it's two temples.
Yeah, and variants, right? There's
Yeah.
a sun, moon, and earth version of each of those two. So
we'll have those will usually be broadcasted with banners. So
Right.
the temples themselves will kind of look very similar, but we'll have what we're calling pristine. It's not really a pristine temple. I like to kind of think of it more as preserved.
yeah, preserved temple.
The
Yeah.
gods have preserved this temple to not fully get destroyed over time, so it's in a much better state. And then we have the fully on destroyed temple.
Yeah, the destroyed version
which
as well.
you'll see in the game.
Yeah.
Between each campaign, right?
Yep,
Before you camp.
absolutely. It'll also be nice because for one, it's cool, right? You get to see here's what the temple's supposed to look like. Oh, and here's one that's completely destroyed. It's also nice because as a visual representation, it immediately makes you realize what kind of world you're in. You're like, oh, I'm in the gods' reach. That's why the temple. It's still within the realm of where the gods can reach. It's still protected by the gods. Now I'm over here in the campaign world. I'm beyond the reach of the gods, and this place has gone to hell.
Yes.
So I think that'll be really nice. It'll also create some nice visual differentiation as well,
Absolutely.
which is really cool.
Absolutely.
So
Well, all right. So now let's just jump in. I'm going to show what's in the game right now and with the temp texture and everything.
now this is by right now. You mean this is the version that players are playing if they were to log into the test right now?
Right now.
Okay.
And we'll just kind of stroll through this real quick just to kind of... So this would be and I'm in my editor, by the way. I want to be very clear about that, so it's a little bit slower. It's basically off my machine. So this is a gray boxed version, what I would call a kind of a finalized gray box version of what we wanted to broadcast, the direction we wanted to go in. So, and then from here, we would get the final concepts. We wanted to be able to see through to the other side to where you would zone out. We have our center area where you would sacrifice, and then where eventually I think the Sentinels are going to go.
Yeah, eventually. So
Yeah.
one thing that is interesting is the nice thing about the gray box is Jon doesn't put a tremendous amount of investment into the area before we can run around it. Because I remember, like, for example, right here, if you'll spin around, at one point, that raised area was raised so high that you couldn't see through to you couldn't really see the arch on the other side. It was basically you're looking at a big wall. I'm talking about kind of that step up right there.
This right here.
You know, yeah, that was maybe 2 or 3 times as tall.
Yeah.
And so we came in and we were like, that just doesn't feel right. It makes this space feel more cramped. It doesn't give me the visibility that I want. We want it to be more open. So Jon, in this version, can go in and just flatten that out, and we can try it again. So it allows us to make, you know, like at one point we had cut off those corners so you could run past them, or no, they were not cut off. So we trimmed, they were pointed, so we trimmed them because we noticed if you wanted to move diagonally, you were constantly bumping up against that corner. So it's really Graybox, the Graybox process like here is really helpful to allow us a chance to test the flow of it before Jon locks in on the look.
That's a very good point, and that sums it up perfectly. Because inevitably, when we make this stuff, it just constantly changes. We'll get in there, we realize, you know what, that just doesn't feel good over there. We need to move it over here.
Right.
Or that needs to be taller. So I mean, that you couldn't have said it perfect. And so this is where the old market is, which is going to be in the same location. But you can kind of get an idea already that we wanted this more human-esque, colorful, kind of just throw stuff in there real quickly. It's has that kind of bazaar. What do they call that? Like in the
it's a bazaar.
Yeah.
It's a market bazaar, right? So we wanted that feeling, and then on the other side we put the crafting tables, right? So that means that this area, and the bank is right there through those doors.
Yeah, that go down.
Having the campaign version be destroyed was a nice side benefit that we got out of that. Which it gave us a way to basically kind of loosen up the reins and let people run in whatever direction they wanted in a way that felt more organic and natural. So, all right, so what do you got here now, Jon?
So now this is the I preserved, pristine, however you want to, because the textures are totally different, but this is kind of like the pristine version of the temple now. So this is, nothing's really destroyed. There's a little bit of aging. You know, you can kind of see some chips up at the tops of some of the stone and textures and stuff, but for the most part, this is a put together temple that hasn't been destroyed yet, and this is what's going to go into the God's Reach.
Cool. And that's the sun symbol.
This is the sun symbol.
The sun temple.
So this would be a sun faction temple, and we're just going to kind of roll through here, just kind of show some things off. I really want to give a shout out to Aaron. He helped me with the statues. He did all these statues.
They are very cool. Yeah.
And also Rudy did a really good job on the market area. He did some new props for the market, which I'll show off.
And then Eric
statues.
and Frank on these statues. The statues came out really pretty great. And of course, I'll always probably give some credit to concept guys because that's where it starts. But that Malachi statue is really
I think
cool.
Frank did that one. I think I don't know if outsourcing did that one. I know Eric did the Allfather, and then I think Frank might have also done
Yaga's really cool too.
So you might look and notice that if you know the lore, the backstory, we don't have all the statues ready just yet.
Yeah, so the gods are not in the right temples yet, so we'll
temples.
have to get that fixed. It's coming. In the meantime, though, rather than just leave it blank, it was better to go ahead and put in a god, if not the god.
So this is kind of the Colosseum area. We'll probably put some training dummies back into here, and which makes sense. This is like a little arena area. And then we'll kind of run through this real quick because I want to get to that destroyed one.
And again, Jon is running in editor version right now, so I just want to point out that this frame rate that you're seeing, which is abysmal, that's not normal for the game. Actually, in the past, it has been in some of our siege fights, but we're fixing that. But right now, as he's running around, the frame rate is not indicative of what you guys see. In fact, actually, 590 when you get in, I think you guys are going to be pleasantly surprised because it's in a pretty good shape. So.
And here's the kind of new market area that has some of the new props that set pieces, I call them, that Rudy had done. It really adds a whole lot of extra detail to this little area. This being my favorite, he did this like little smelting kind of thingy. I love it. Looks great. And like I say, with all the statues around, I mean, this is still a cool looking temple, but to me, the real cool look is the destroyed version, which we can show off now.
Cool.
So actually, this would be a great segue. I'll back off over here. You got to keep them teased, right? So I'm going to just show something off real quick.
Okay.
Kind of the process of how we got to some of those textures and what we, how our process and whatnot. But this is a program we use to procedurally generate a texture so that it can be tiled in infinite directions.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, for example, we had to start with the color. So we wanted to do an alabaster color to the temple because we wanted that kind of white look to it.
And you can see that on all the concepts, actually,
Yes,
right? We
exactly.
explored quite a bit. The versions that were in there first, for example, didn't have that gold, the lattice inside. So that was something that we added because we were afraid that it would be a little too flat if we didn't have it.
So this was one of the first textures we kind of started off with, which was how do we get kind of our marble-esque alabaster look? And then from here, this texture kind of propagated out to everything else.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of like, we used this on the walls, and there's a little bit of detail in there, not too much, because, our style is kind of very stylistic. It's not too cartoony, but it's not super realistic, so there's a fine balance that we have to kind of figure out all the time. But then we were able to do take this texture, and then we had to have a damaged version or like a weathered version. Is kind of what I would say.
Yeah, because it's not just about changing and making a bunch of rubble everywhere, right? We actually want to go through and make sure that that each asset then looks like it's gone through hell and back.
But we don't have an infinite amount of time, so we had to creatively come up with the best way possible to do this. So the way we made this temple was we had some tile textures. We had some UV props, like you can think of it how they make characters, which is a very, painterly way to do it. And then we combined some of those things together to get the whole. And there's a perfect example of the weathered version. So now this is the kind of destroyed version of the temple that you'll see out in the campaigns. And
That rune gate area over there, by the way, was really cool. So be sure you check that out.
Oh yeah, we will definitely be going. But we really wanted to kind of show off that this is a thousands of year old unprotected temple now.
Right.
The gods are no longer a part of it. They've kind of abandoned.
Yeah, it's just that their power is less. They've lost a big chunk of their power because this world has moved closer to the hunger. And the gods are scared of the hunger.
And so that kind of harkens back to what you were talking about with the roots kind of getting out of whack and growing and smashing through the stones and stuff. That was kind of a cool set piece that we wanted to do.
Yeah, so in this version we didn't do what I mentioned earlier, which was the scorching the sun temple, and instead we just we created the vines to see how that would look. We may decide that we want to make that seasonal instead of making it sun, moon, earth themed, in which case all of them would have the cool vines, but the vines themselves would look different as we moved into fall and into winter, which I think might make more sense. So
what is this area down here?
This is the Colosseum.
Okay.
So it's kind of the layout is the same.
yeah, you can tell they were based on the same core temple asset, but
All right, so Scree wants to know, are god statues going to be thematic for each faction?
yes, they
Yes.
are. They are. And actually, so the sacrifice system is another thing that is on the list that we need to go back to. And you can tell that because right now the sacrifice is triggered by one brazier that's in the middle of the temple. And when you go up to it, your only option is to sacrifice to Malachi. And that's just because I thought the Malachi concept was really cool, and I said, use that one. That'll work for now. So we need to open that up in the new version to where you can sacrifice to the different gods. And the way the design is currently shaping up, you will get different benefits from the gods depending on who you choose to sacrifice to. So that's a tough one. It's one of those situations where I have two very different design ideas that I'm trying to puzzle between. One is, hey, wouldn't it be cool if the benefits that you get for sacrificing to the god were themed on that god? For example, if I do choose to sacrifice to Malachi, I get a really cool stealth buff. That would be really neat because that's fitting for Malachi. The downside of that, though, is now I'm not going to choose based on role-playing reasons. I'm going to choose based on the buff that I want. And that kind of undercuts the entire idea of actually forming a relationship with a god. So that's one of those situations where there's not a great answer. I either have to kind of make all of the buffs across the board unilateral, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, so you can, because people will always choose power over role playing. Most players will choose power over role playing. So your options are to either just say you don't care and give on the role playing, or kind of water down the in-game effect so that they can still make a role-playing choice and it doesn't have an impact in the game. So I don't know where I'll fall out on that one. It may be that what we try and do is mirror the tables, so that you have in each of the 3 temples there is a god that gives you that stealth buff. That way, at least now it's thematic, but it's not. I'm not so. It's kind of a halfway approach, right? I'm still getting some role playing because I'm still sacrificing to one of the moon gods. It just maybe wasn't the one that I wanted, but that still feels pretty good. So I don't know. We'll see where that falls out. But we are, to answer the Screes question, we do have another pass coming of sacrifice, and I think it'll be a much better system.
The good news is that the fact that our lighting is now more universally between the scenes and the game is that looking in scene view almost matches kind of the game now.
Oh, you want to pull this one up?
So yeah, you can pull this one out, and I'll just fly through my scene, so this can just kind of show you.
What's interesting to me is how much this one ended up looking like the concept. Like for a second there before you moved the mouse, I actually thought we might have been looking at the concept, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's always awesome when you can kind of get really close to the concept. Same thing with the over here. This is kind of like...
the fly cam, because of the frame rate, the fly cam is actually better.
Yeah.
So we should have just gone to this immediately. So
this is now the market area. So again, it's the same kind of market, and the location is going to be the same. And that was a design decision. We briefly in the beginning we talked about randomizing this whole area.
Yep, we did.
But then we realized that would be really kind of frustrating probably for the player to constantly trying to figure out where everything is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was a conscious decision to put these in the same location every time. And then let's see. So yeah, let me get.
Oh, you want to go down to the bank?
Yeah.
We haven't gone down there. That's pretty cool.
This is the center area. Aaron did that as well, which came out really great. This is the Spirit Bank plus bank. Mm-hmm. This whole area.
Yep.
And
so yeah, you guys have been asking for a while, like where are we going to move the Spirit Bank to? And this is the answer. So it will be location locked. That is not in the next version, but it is in the following version because it's part of the overall embargo changes. So that'll be coming not in 590, but in the one after that.
So that means people can't just be running around in the wild and open their Spirit Bank and put things in it?
That is correct.
You like my Scrooge McDuck vault?
But we have some plans in place. I know that some people were like, that's awesome, and some other watchers were like, oh dear God, that sounds miserable. We have some ideas. There's a cat and mouse game that goes on between people that are out hunting and people who are trying to collect things out in the world, harvesting or just collection game. So we have some other tricks up our sleeve that are coming as well that will balance that out. So it's not just becoming a game of cat. It already is a game of cat. So we need to give the mice some additional tricks.
Thank you.
So
on behalf of the mice, I thank you. What are your plans for the? Oh, wait, not that one. I'm sorry.
So
wait.
Wall. John's not on the screen right now, but I was going to say that wall in the background that you see there. That's not actually a wall. That is the edge of the parcel.
Oh
that one back there. That still looks untextured. That is the edge of parcel. Yeah. So you can kind of see how we build these parcels out. And there's a small area at the edge, along the edge of each one. I think it's like 20 meters or 10 meters or something like that. That is the stitching, so that whatever parcel is kind of stuck up against or next to that one, it will stitch between the two.
This is technically the edge, right?
That's the edge of this parcel, yeah.
Okay, Hookham wants to know, will other parts of the temple,
like the Colosseum, be used for stuff?
Yeah, so what we've done right now is put the training dummies down there. And then if we've talked about using it for, and at one point I think we had it working for pack pigs. We had it for newbie monsters that are down there. So I wouldn't be surprised if a few of these things continue to move around a little bit. John mentioned earlier that there's the big sacrifice brazier right in the middle of the temple, kind of in the heart of the transept. I think that once we have the braziers, the new sacrifice system in, you'll be sacrificing instead at the four corners at the base of the statues, and the middle section will be replaced with the sentinel. So, but for right now, it works fine. There's the Rune Gate area. I love the roots coming up. Was that another Aaron one?
Aaron did that as well.
Really nice.
It came out excellent.
And I think Jack is going to be doing a write-up about the Sentinels soon.
Oh, is he? Okay.
I think so.
Well, I look forward to fixing that.
And this is the old... And this is the old crypt, which we're not using right now, but we can open this up at any point in time if we want to use this room for anything else. but
Which I expect that we will. I
Yeah.
have plans.
Navy Style said, I think the keeps need a texture update like this. Are you going to?
yeah, we're actually
It's actually something that's in
Literally
the works right
working on
now.
it.
We're
There you
working
go.
on right now on not just updating them, but also a keep a variant or two. I'd like to get some variation in. We actually have a whole bunch of customization pieces done for all the castle, the outer walls, right? Those hollow tower wall, the walls that have the hallways running through them.
I mean,
we
this
have
is-
a bunch of different things that go up on top that we just have never gotten in the game. So that's going to be coming at some point soon. And then this is the other thing John's been working on over here too, is the castle, trying to get it into the campaign world so that we have yet another objective type to go fight over.
But this is an example of how this would be a new variant. Like we're going to replace that.
Oh, that looks beautiful.
So I
haven't
mean,
seen that.
this
That's
is a much
gorgeous.
kind of a much better texture that feels a lot more castle-y.
Yep.
Compared to the old one, which it's old, it was 3 years ago. So, but yeah,
That's
we're
really cool.
working on this right now to get this up and ready for the players. But yeah, I think Nick right now is concepting out some various.
Yeah, he's working on the
stones.
variant stuff right now.
Because we don't want to actually just have just one version. We would like to try a handful of different stones so that maybe each castle feels a little different.
That's the goal. I mean, right now, everything, even the forts right now in the game, all of the forts are basically the same, which is really sad because we went to all the trouble of making those Lego parts to be able to build lots of varieties of different keeps and forts, and we just haven't had a chance to go through and make those variants because we're always moving on. We've got more to do. So
Forever.
forever.
Moving
So
on.
we will get back at some point to going and filling in some of those areas where we laid groundwork to build on. We just haven't gotten to it yet. So
Okay, so we're getting down to the last few minutes, and I
Okay.
wanted to, does anybody have any more questions about the temple or the environment work that John does?
I see lots of questions about other things.
So some people came in late and they want to know if they can see the God statues again.
yeah.
Because-
absolutely. These things came out so good. I mean, these are our character
You're
artists.
not in full screen, by the way.
Oh, I am not in full screen. I apologize. There we go. This is the Allfather. And now that we have our much better lighting, a lot of this stuff that we've had, I mean, the art is there. It looks really good.
Yeah,
It's just
for sure.
either too dark or it just didn't look right in certain lighting scenarios. But now, for the most part, everything's starting to really pop again.
They want to see Malachi and Yaga.
Oh yeah, he came out great. Frank did a good job on Malachi. He just looks cool.
There you go, Scree.
I love
Oh, I
his
didn't
little
see the
spiders.
spider on his shoulder. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I had the concepts with me because these guys nailed the concepts.
We need the little fun pop things with the big heads.
The Malachi with the spider.
Yaga's cool too.
I think Yaga is one of my favorites just because of the way, her hands reaching out at you and this giant weapon that she has.
Will guilds get the opportunity to customize a guild EK with their emblem? Like on the side of a keep? I guess maybe like a banner? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
we
talking
do. We
about, Ernest?
need to get that. So we have the banners aren't set up that way right now. They literally only have the 3 states. They have the sun, order, moon logos on them. So we do need to get that set up. It's just something that we haven't gotten to yet. So
It's Archon. I like Archon. I like his kind of stoic.
yeah, he's a real asshole. Am I allowed to say that? CC, am I allowed to say that?
I think you just did.
He kind of has that
It's
look.
out there.
He kind of has
Okay.
that look like he's just, better than everybody else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he kind of is, but still, he doesn't have to be such a jerk about it. So, in the meantime, if you just want to continue kind of sitting back and watching before you make a decision, totally get that. You can subscribe to YouTube and Twitter and Twitch and Facebook and all those crazy places that people go to follow things. If this is your first time seeing the show, crowfall.com is a great place to start, and our forums are also great as well if you just want to jump in. What we have found is the people who are into it the most and get the most out of it are the ones who are joining guilds. So I'll also do a quick shout out to the guild forums. Is a fantastic place to go to find a guild. So there you go. If you want to get involved in the community and kind of jump into the deep end of the pool quickly, that's where I would go to do it. Lastly, watch for more live streams like this one. And thank you guys for coming and taking the time to hang out with us today. And we hope you like what you saw. As always, feel free to jump on the forums and let us know what you think of Jon's work or the temple design or any of the questions we've answered. We try really, really hard around here to engage you guys in helping us to build this game. Thank you so much, guys, for coming out. It's great to see you as always.